Good afternoon. I wanted to take just a second to talk to you about rationalizing your denominator. Okay, so you need to learn how to rationalize the denominator. When you end up, and it's typically when we're using the Pythagorean theorem, and you end up doing some of your trig functions, like your cosine, your tangent, your sine. Sometimes you can end up with a square root in the denominator of a fraction. And so here is what we have. We have 3 over the square root of 5. And it doesn't matter how you ended up with square root of 5 in the denominator. What you need to understand is that that is not fully simplified when you have the square root of 5 in the denominator. So on your project, many of you probably got a note that said rationalize the denominator. So I want to take a minute and talk to you about exactly what that means. So here's my first problem right here. I have 3 over the square root of 5. What we have to do is we have to multiply by the square root of 5 over square root of 5. Now, when we multiply anything over itself, we're multiplying by 1. So multiplying by the square root of 5 over square root of 5, we're essentially multiplying by 1. So in the numerator of this, when I have 3 times the square root of 5, I would write that, and I would say that as 3 on the square root of 5. When I multiply the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, I get the square root of 25. And the square root of 25 is 5. So now our final answer right here is this 3 on the square root of 5 over 5. And just a reminder, you can't cancel those two 5s. You've got 1 5 that's inside a square root, and you have 1 5 that's outside the square root. So those can't cancel. So this is your final answer right here. And that is how you rationalize a denominator. Now, I want to go ahead and do a second one. Here we've got 2 over the square root of 3. To rationalize this denominator, we multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. Okay, in the numerator, what we end up with is 2 on the square root of 3, and in the denominator, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so here is another example of rationalizing that denominator. Now, this last one that I have down here is 3 over the square root of 4. You do not need to rationalize this denominator. What you need to do is you need to simplify this right here. Okay, square root of 4 is a perfect square. Okay, so what you need to do here is you need to take the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So our answer to this is just 3 over 2. So do be sure that you have simplified anything that's inside the square root, because you don't want a perfect square in there. If you've got a perfect square in there, you need to go ahead and simplify it. Okay, so that is how you rationalize a denominator, and that will be important for your final project that's due at the end of this week. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.